When the car hit us, Ethan instinctively shielded Luna, leaving my leg to be crushed. After the emergency surgery, my mother looked at my broken, bloodied leg and sobbed. "Elena, look at you now. Let your cousin be with Ethan. She truly cares for him, and they will both take care of you in the future." I lay in bed, staring at the celebratory photo of their miraculous survival, tears soaking into my pillow. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer in that hospital room. Instead, I found myself back in the year Luna first came to live with us. Bright lights flickered above me, pain radiated from my lower body, and my mother sat at my bedside, wiping away tears. "Elena, Luna already told me that you and Ethan broke up," she said. "Relationships can't be forced. If you hadn't clung to him so tightly, you wouldn't have run into the road in anger and gotten hit. It's a blessing Luna wasn't hurt, or I wouldn't be able to face your aunt." Rage boiled inside me. Gritting my teeth, I managed to ask, "You believe everything Luna says?" My mother snapped. "Are you accusing her of lying again? Why can't you let this go? You'll need her help with your leg from now on." With a loud crash, I knocked the cup off my bedside table, my voice shaking. "Get out. Just leave." I wept into my pillow as images of the past flooded my mind. 6 years of living under the same roof, and Luna had taken everything from me. My room, my mother's love, and finally, my fiancé. Just before my engagement, she had appeared in a handmade wedding dress, tears glistening in her eyes as she stood before Ethan. "I can't hide my feelings anymore," she whispered. "You love me too, don't you? Please, just give me a chance." Ethan had let go of my hand. His lips pressed into a thin line, saying nothing. And when that truck came barreling toward us, he hadn't hesitated. He had leapt to protect her, leaving me to bleed out alone. The pain of betrayal and my injuries had been too much. I lost consciousness. When I woke again, Ethan was beside me, gently brushing my eyelashes. "Sleepyhead, are you dozing off again while I explain the lesson?" I blinked, momentarily disoriented. He looked younger, fresher. Then, distant sounds from the living room reached me. My legs, they were whole again. "Elena, come out here. Your cousin will be living with us from today," my mother's voice called. Before I could process the joy of standing, reality sank in. I was back in high school, the year Luna moved in with us. My aunt had been unfaithful, and her husband had left in anger, moving to another city. Worried about Luna's future, my mother had insisted on taking her in. At that time, Luna was a simple shy girl from the countryside, her skin tanned, her clothes plain. My mother pushed her toward me. "Luna struggles with her studies, so from now on, you'll tutor her for 2 hours a day." It was an order, not a request. Just like before. My grades weren't great, but my mother insisted. "Your aunt sacrificed her education for me. You owe this to our family." Reluctantly, I had helped Luna, even letting her join my study sessions with Ethan. And how had she repaid me? By secretly changing my university application so I wouldn't end up in the same city as Ethan. Meanwhile, she had used the money my mother gave her to secretly visit him. I had learned the truth only after my engagement. My mother had sighed. "Luna has loved Ethan for so long. She spent all her money on train tickets, probably surviving on instant noodles just to see him. Isn't it ridiculous? I lost a leg, but Luna couldn't bear to lose love." "Elena, don't give Luna an attitude," my mother warned as I stood frozen in realization. Before I could respond, Ethan arrived, and my mother's demeanor instantly softened. "Oh, Ethan, you're here too." She had always approved of us studying together because Ethan came from a good family and was handsome. But when Luna saw him, her eyes sparkled with admiration. He, however, barely spared her a glance. Back then, Luna had not yet stolen my clothes or the skincare products my aunt gifted me. She was still the quiet girl with rustic pigtails. Hardly someone to catch Ethan's eye. Hurt by his indifference, Luna's face twisted with sorrow. Oblivious, my mother beamed. "This is Elena's cousin. You'll look after her too, right?" Ethan gave a short nod about to leave when my mother added, "Elena, Luna's eyesight isn't great. Your room has better lighting. Let her stay there for 2 years, okay?" In my previous life, I had resisted but ultimately lost. Luna hadn't just stayed for 2 years. She had stayed through college and long enough to take Ethan from me. Ethan had once stood by my side, acknowledging my mother's favoritism. But one day, I had returned from my aunt's house to find him walking out of my room, Luna's face streaked with tears. "Don't be so petty, Elena," he had scolded me. "It's just a room. You shouldn't hoard gifts from your aunt when Luna has nothing." We had fought, but he had always known how to pacify me. I had never realized he enjoyed both my love and Luna's quiet devotion. Now, given a second chance, I had no intention of walking the same path. I didn't need love. I didn't need family. But I would not lose my leg again. Turning on my heel, I began packing my belongings. "Elena, what are you doing?" my mother asked, alarmed. "Didn't you ask me to move out of my room?" I said calmly. "I'm going to Aunt's house. It's closer to school and better for my studies." Her face reddened with anger. "You know your aunt looks down on me, and you still choose to leave?" Luna clutched my sleeve, her voice trembling. "It's my fault. I can stay in the storage room. Please don't move out." Then she turned to Ethan, grabbing his arm. "Ethan, you've told me so much about Elena. Please convince her to stay." Ethan pried her hand off, then walked over, pressing down on my suitcase. "You can share a room with Luna. There's no need to upset your parents over something so trivial." He had always been like this, filial, obedient, constantly advising me to be the same. Last time I had fallen for it. Not this time. This time, I was staying far away from them. Ignoring everyone, I left for my aunt's place late that night. The next morning at school, I saw Ethan helping Luna up the stairs. "Ethan, you're too impulsive," I overheard him say. "No matter what issues you have at home, leaving like that isn't the answer," he added. "Luna's new here, and she doesn't know her way around. As her older cousin, you should be looking out for her." Luna shot Ethan a grateful glance. "Thank you, Ethan. I wouldn't know what to do without you," she said softly. I noticed the slight smile at the corner of Ethan's lips despite the coolness in his eyes. I couldn't help but think, what man wouldn't enjoy being admired, even if it's from someone less attractive? I decided to ignore their conversation and responded coldly. "Ethan, if you want to take care of Luna, do it yourself. Just leave me out of it." He looked at me shocked. "Elena, what's wrong with you? We've been in school together since middle school." Luna tugged at my sleeve, her voice full of confusion. "Cousin, what did I do wrong for you to dislike me so much?" Impatient, I shook her off. She lost her balance and stumbled, nearly falling down the stairs. Ethan froze, rushing to her side to escort her to the nurse's office. I stood there for a moment, letting out a dry laugh. "Here we go again," I muttered. Luna's talent for creating accidents was impressive, from fake pregnancy stumbles to framing others with her dramatic acts. But this time, I was going to use her tricks to finally escape that house. Later, my mom showed up at school. Without waiting for an explanation, she pointed at me, furious. "What happened? Why did you push Luna down the stairs?" she demanded. The nurse had bandaged Luna's minor injury, but she clung to Ethan, saying it still hurt. Seeing her cling to him like that made my chest burn with anger. "Why are you just standing there?" my mom snapped, pushing me. "Apologize to Luna." "No," I shot back, my voice firm. "I did nothing wrong. She fell because she wasn't paying attention, not because of me." Mom grabbed my ear, turning to Luna with a soft expression. "Luna, what happened?" The word accuse took me back to old memories. When I was little, Luna had wanted my crystal ball princess castle, a gift from Dad. I refused to give it to her. In retaliation, she threw it on the floor, breaking it into pieces. Before I even had a chance to react, she sat down, sobbing, picked up a shard, and scratched her leg. When my mom came in, Luna crawled toward her, tearfully saying, "Auntie, don't blame my cousin. She didn't mean to." Mom's heart melted at the sight, and she scolded me harshly. Back then, I couldn't understand why my mom always believed Luna's tears over my side of the story. This time I tried to stand my ground. But Mom was certain Luna would never hurt herself just to frame me. "You're lying," Mom said, accusing me. "You can't even take responsibility for your actions." Luna's eyes filled with tears again. "Please don't fight over me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm sure my cousin was upset and didn't mean to push me." I turned away, frustrated. Is it just a soft tissue injury or a fracture? It's just a minor scrape, the nurse answered. Mom's face went pale. How could that be? Why does Luna say it hurts so much? The nurse shrugged. If you don't believe me, you can go to the hospital for a scan. I couldn't resist, adding with a smirk, better hurry, or the wound will heal before you even get there. Mom was too furious to respond. Ethan walked up to me with a stern look. Elena, regardless of what happened, you started it. You should apologize. I had been too compliant in the past to notice how much he loved siding with the weaker person. I pulled my wrist away from him, and he stumbled back. See? You started it. I'm just defending myself, I snapped. For a brief moment, his face showed a hint of hurt, but I didn't care. Ignoring my mom's yelling, I walked away. That night, I still didn't return home. Mom didn't come looking for me either. Instead, she spent the night at the hospital with Luna, who posted pictures on social media. Among the 9 pictures was her bandaged calf, a message thanking Ethan, and photos of my mom busy arranging Luna's registration and preparing bone broth for her. The caption was full of fake sentiment. Even though I'm hurt, I'm surrounded by love. I tossed my phone aside, feeling strangely calm. In my past life, things had been different. When I had a fever, my mom ignored me, but took Luna to see a famous dermatologist. Back then, I wondered why. Wasn't I her real daughter? Now I understood. Some things just can't be forced, especially love and family bonds. My aunt brought me a plate of sweet sunshine grapes, knowing they were my favorite. She asked, "What's wrong, Elena? Watching your mom spoil Luna again." I answered flatly, "Mom and Aunt never got along." In the past, I would avoid talking badly about my mom in front of Aunt to avoid causing any tension. But now, I didn't feel the need to hold back. Aunt, with her fiery temper, immediately fumed. "Your mom is such a classic sister supporter. She's already helping pay off your aunt's gambling debts, and now she's treating Luna better than you." Despite everything, Aunt had always cared for me. She often sent me beautiful dresses, but most of them were either sent to Luna or sold by Mom to pay off debts. Seeing my mood darken, Aunt put her arm around my shoulder. "Your cousin has no direction in life, and she's already running all over the place after graduation. You can stay here as long as you like. Just keep me company." The next morning, Aunt made a huge spread for breakfast. Shrimp dumplings, steamed buns, wontons, and soy milk. "You need to eat well while studying," she said. "Your brain needs the nutrition." Aunt used to run a restaurant, and her cooking was incredible. I ate until I was full. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, echoing through the house. She glared at my aunt. "Big sis, you sent my husband off to South America for work, and now you want to take my daughter too?" she said sharply. The room grew tense. My aunt wasn't one to back down. "Blame yourself for not being able to hold on to either your husband or your daughter," she retorted. In the past, I used to always side with my mom when my aunt would throw these harsh remarks her way. I had been convinced by my mom that Aunt had been trying to drive a wedge between them from the start. After all, Aunt had introduced Dad to a high-paying job opportunity that took him abroad, leaving us separated for long stretches of time. Over the years, hearing these things had naturally caused me to distance myself from Aunt. Back then, Aunt's husband was still around, and her busy restaurant kept her from visiting me except on holidays, when she would send gifts. But in my past life, when I broke my leg in an accident, Aunt rushed to the hospital, frantic, willing to do whatever it took to help. She was much better to me than my mom, who had expected me to share my boyfriend with Luna. Now, as I watched my mom and Aunt argue, I couldn't help but crack sunflower seeds, amused by the drama. Mom, furious, snapped at me, "Elena, are you just going to stand there eating? Pack your things and come home. Your aunt doesn't know how to raise children. She has only a high school diploma, and your cousin only went to vocational school. Stay here and you'll waste your life." Aunt shot back, hands on her hips. "I may not have a college degree, but at least I built a business. Better than being a housewife forever, don't you think?" That hit Mom hard. She had always used my young age as an excuse not to return to work, forcing Dad to hand over his salary card while she sent money to her family. Looking back, I realized her so-called self-sacrifice was just another way to control the situation. I didn't want to make Aunt feel worse, so I spoke up. "Mom, Luna can have my room now. I'm not going back. Aunt shot a look at my mom with disdain and said coolly, "What a shame. Half the money for your house came from me, and now you're using it to play the good guy." I raised an eyebrow and responded, "About as thick as a castle wall." We both burst out laughing. Mom's face turned red, and she snapped, "Elena, if you don't listen to me, you'll regret it." She stormed off. The smile quickly faded from my face. In the past, I had always been obedient, listening to my mom's advice, even when it led me down the wrong path. She insisted science and math were the way to make money in the future. Ethan had also convinced me that if I followed the science track, we'd be in the same class, the same university, and the same major. So, I gave up on the arts where I excelled, to pursue a path I was struggling with. It felt like racing someone else's best horse with my worst. On top of that, I spent valuable time tutoring Luna, who struggled with her grades, simply because my language and English scores were higher. Mom always insisted I help her cousin. Ethan, too, became our science tutor, giving Luna chances to get closer to him. And who ended up with nothing? Me. The one who ruined her own life. Looking back now, I saw it as fate giving me a second chance, and I was determined to do things differently this time. At school, my homeroom teacher looked at me hesitantly. "Elena, our school splits into science and humanities starting in the first year. If you transfer now, it'll be tough to catch up." I shook my head, my mind already made up. I had spent so much of my last life stuck in a path I wasn't suited for. Luna had influenced my major change, and in the end, I was transferred to a school far from both home and Ethan, wasting years of my life. When I graduated and came back, the only job I could find barely covered my expenses. Ethan sneered, "Once we get married, you can be a housewife. Your salary wouldn't even cover a few outfits for me." I'd acted gentle and obedient on the surface, but inside, I was proud. I worked overtime relentlessly, trying to climb the ladder. Ethan complained that I didn't make time for him and once even said, "Luna's much more understanding. One necklace, and she's all sweet talk. You should learn to make your boyfriend happy." That infuriated me. If Luna hadn't changed my major, if Mom hadn't forced me to stop studying, if Ethan hadn't pressured me, my life wouldn't have turned out this way. Taking a deep breath, I vowed to use the knowledge from my past life to rebuild everything. The teacher, seeing my resolve, pulled out a form. "You'll need a parent's signature. We can't make the change without it." I was stunned. Mom would never agree. Sure enough, when I got home, she bombarded me with a tirade. "So, you've gotten bolder after spending time with your aunt, huh? Studying the humanities will get you nowhere. You'll end up as a low-paid office clerk." Luna, with a concerned expression, tried to advise. "Cousin, you should listen to Auntie. She cares for you the most. She knows what's best." I saw the flicker in her eyes, knowing she didn't mean it. Luna didn't want me in the humanities track. She would rather I stayed away from Ethan to give her more opportunities to climb the social ladder. But this time, things were different. My grades in science weren't great, but I excelled in language and English. Relationships are all about give and take. While Ethan helped me with math and science, I helped him with English and writing. Luna struggled in both. I no longer spent 2 hours each day tutoring Luna at Mom's insistence. Ethan didn't have the patience to help her catch up, especially if it meant sacrificing his own time and energy. Mom, thinking she had me cornered, said, "Elena, move back home. You know how much I dislike your aunt, yet you stay with her just to spite me. Luna's struggling with her studies. You need to help tutor her. I'll even buy a bunk bed so you two can share a room." I refused. "No thanks." I looked her squarely in the eye, a hint of defiance in my voice. "That won't be necessary. I'll have Aunt call Dad and ask him to come home and sign the papers." Mom's face darkened. Later, Ethan caught me on the school playground. "Why are you transferring to the humanities? Are you trying to get away from me?" I shook my head. "No. I've just realized what path I want to take, and I don't want to compromise anymore." Frustrated, he said, "Are you upset with me for spending time with Luna and deliberately ignoring you?" "It was your mom who asked me to help her with tutoring. She said Luna's your cousin, and we're all part of the same family." I unlocked my phone, pulled up Luna's social media post, and showed him. "Just tutoring, huh?" In a post visible only to me, Luna was bragging about how her mom bought her a new phone and paid for expensive acne treatments to help her attract boys with her flawless, fair skin. And of course there was more. Her first time trying Odin. Her first time riding the Ferris wheel. Her first time at the aquarium. All of these firsts were with Ethan for Luna's birthday. Mom had invited a whole group of my classmates, just like before. She had told everyone how Luna's birthday was only a few days after mine, asking them to keep an eye on her. Luna showed up wearing a princess-style dress and full makeup, looking more dolled up than me, the actual birthday girl. Summer mumbled, "Luna, always acting so innocent. She just arrived and already clings to Ethan, flirting with everyone else." I stayed calm, but Summer seemed uneasy. "I know you don't care about Ethan anymore, but do you really not care that she's taking over everything with your mom?" Following her gaze, I saw Mom on the phone with the cake shop. "I told you, the cake should have 2 names, but make sure Luna's gets the spotlight. Elena's can be in initials." Summer spoke up on my behalf. "Auntie, it's Elena's birthday today. How can you not put her name on the cake?" Mom defended herself. "I've been celebrating Elena's birthday for years. Now, she's ignoring me, staying at her aunt's. She should be happy her name is even on the cake." "How petty," I muttered. I couldn't stop myself from laughing. "Mom, maybe you should mention the money for the cake and dress came from Dad's hard work?" "Ungrateful brat," she snapped. "How dare you talk back?" In a fit of rage, she raised her hand to strike me. I ducked and gave her a cold, piercing stare. Maybe it was just my imagination, but she seemed to flinch. For a second, she wasn't the dominant, controlling mother she had always been. Could it be that, like a spring, the parent-child dynamic works the opposite way? The more I grew, the more fragile she became. As the banquet began, Ethan showed up with 2 presents. He handed one to me, and Summer, clearly teasing, said, "Sharing the love, huh?" I rejected it. Annoyed, Ethan said, "Elena, just because you're transferring doesn't mean you have to push me away." Luna quickly rushed over, lifting her dress and nudging me aside. "Ethan, did you bring me a present?" Hurt, Ethan shoved both gifts into Luna's hands. "They're both for you." Watching him get embarrassed, I felt a small sense of relief. In this life, I had my own path to follow, and it was clear that Ethan and I were meant to part ways. There was no need to hold on to petty emotions. When it was time to cut the cake, Luna and I stood side by side. It was Luna's first time in the spotlight, and she was giddy, constantly glancing at Ethan. Seizing the opportunity when she wasn't looking, I firmly pushed her head down into the cake, grabbing her hair to force her face into the frosting. She let out a brief high-pitched scream. Her face, perfectly made up, was now covered in cake, and her beautiful dress was ruined. Mom tried to intervene, but my aunt arrived just in time with a gift, holding her back. My classmates, delighted by the chaos, rushed forward to smear cake on Luna too. Only Ethan grabbed my wrist, furious. "Enough, Elena. How could you sink so low?" Summer immediately came to my defense. "We agreed. The point of this birthday was to go big and have fun, right? Everyone here knows that, right?" My classmates, already on my side due to earlier favors, chimed in. "Exactly." I stood back, indifferent to the drama. Last year, Mom had given Luna the beautiful dress Dad sent me, saying, "You've had plenty of nice things already. It's Luna's first birthday party, let her shine." I had been so frustrated. When we cut the cake, Luna had pushed my face into it. And when I tried to be angry, she hid behind Mom, batting her eyelashes, saying, "I saw on TV that birthday cake fights are a thing." I was just giving her a taste of her own medicine. Why was that a problem? Mom grumbled, blaming me for ruining Luna's birthday. But Dad's face grew dark. "Enough. Today is Elena's birthday. You used my money to buy a dress for someone else and didn't even get my daughter's name right on the cake. Who's really ruining things here?" Luna went quiet, ashamed, but my eyes watered a bit. Dad rarely had time for me, always busy with work, but his gifts were always thoughtful. The clothes he sent fit perfectly, and the books and travel magazines he picked were exactly what I liked. Mom sneered, sarcastically repeating her usual complaints about him. "All he knows is buying flashy gifts for his daughter. He doesn't even save money for me." I finally saw through my past illusions and realized the truth. Dad wasn't just sending material gifts. He was out there working hard to support me with his silent love. Before leaving, he handed me a bank card, his face full of unspoken affection. "This is my savings for you. Don't let your mom find out. You're 18 now. You can make your own choices. If you want to stay with your aunt, nobody can stop you." Later, I found out that Dad had used his salary to bargain for my freedom, making sure Mom couldn't control my life. Once I switched to the humanities track, I stopped wasting time on Luna's antics. Every moment since my rebirth felt precious. Like a sponge, I absorbed every bit of knowledge I had missed before. It felt amazing to do something I was truly good at. With hard work, I earned a spot in the top 10 of the first senior exam. Everyone was shocked, but no one knew how hard I was working to catch up. The summer before senior year, I turned down Ethan's travel offer, ignored Mom's calls to tutor Luna, and studied relentlessly from morning to night. My aunt, worried about me, made sure I had nutritious meals and even hired a tutor. Meanwhile, Luna kept posting on social media, showing off the new dresses Mom bought for her, boasting about how my room was redecorated for her. She even proudly shared how Mom had given away my favorite stuffed animal to a homeless person. Ethan began to visit less and less. At first, Ethan only allowed Luna to approach him as a way to stir things up and provoke me a little. It was all just a game to him. But as my grades soared after switching to humanities and my essays started being used as models by teachers, Ethan started to get uneasy. Especially with Leon, who was soon to become the top student in humanities, hanging around me. One day, I saw Ethan blocking the classroom door. He looked at me with an expression that mixed frustration and something darker. "Did you switch to humanities for him?" he asked coldly. I didn't flinch. "Are you really this obsessed with me?" His words came fast. "Girls like you always end up taking care of family. Why bother being so ambitious?" In that moment, something clicked. I saw Ethan for who he really was. He'd always pushed me toward science, ignoring my interests, all because it kept me in line with his expectations. He wanted a girl who would be gentle and obedient, someone he could control. But I had changed. I realized that real love was about letting someone grow, letting them soar higher. I looked him in the eye and answered, "Before this, Leon and I barely knew each other. But who knows what the future holds?" As soon as I spoke, Leon walked in, his expression colder than a winter morning. He glanced at Ethan, his voice casual but cutting. "Elena, didn't we agree that we shouldn't waste time on irrelevant people?" "Let's go," Leon said, and we turned to leave. That's when I thought back to last summer, when I first met Leon. I was at the library, expanding my extracurricular reading, when I spotted him, the future top student in humanities, immersed in photography. I had plans for my future, and the more we talked, the more I realized how much we had in common. We connected over the potential of digital media. Leon was one of the few who understood how important content creation and planning could be in the future. He even shared his notes with me, notes that were so detailed they almost felt like a shortcut to success. By the end of the semester, I was ranking in the top 3 of the humanities class, and my aunt was thrilled. She promised me a big reward. I smiled and shook my head. "No need. Just bring my cousin back." She didn't quite get it, but she did as I asked. My cousin, who had never been a star student under my aunt's strict watch, was now passionate about travel and documenting his experiences. When he came back home for winter break, I treated him to milk tea and had Leon shoot a short video of him enjoying food. I added captions and music, uploading it to a platform I knew would become huge one day. Success wasn't instant, but I worked on it steadily, brainstorming with Leon and coaching my cousin in real time. I was creating something big. One day, we bumped into Ethan and his family at a local restaurant. Ethan shot me a glare. "Elena," he said coldly, "graduation exams are close. How do you find the time for all these distractions?" His mother, looking down at me, chimed in, "Elena, why are you hanging out with these boys? Girls like you don't need a high degree, just the right manners. You'll never outscore Ethan, but at least you could stay in the same city and take care of him." She added with a smile that made my blood boil, "Later, you can support your husband and raise children." I'd heard this kind of condescending advice before, and it always made me want to scream. I stared at Ethan and his mother, coldly. "What gives you two the right to think I should listen to you?" Ethan rushed to defend his mother. I thought you were just going through a rebellious phase, Elena, but you can't talk to my mom like that. Apologize, he demanded. That's when it hit me. In my past life, I'd been conditioned to believe that girls shouldn't be too strong, that they had to know their place. I'd been taught that a woman's role was to care for a man, to be humble and obedient. But what had that gotten me? A cheating boyfriend, a biased mother, and a broken heart? I grabbed my iced tea and splashed it right into Ethan's face. A guy who ranks 100 places lower than me doesn't deserve to talk to me. As I walked away, my cousin gave me a thumbs up. Elena, after just 3 days, you've gone from a shy pushover to a total she-devil. I rolled my eyes and twisted his ear. Stop talking so much. But I noticed Leon smiling from the corner of his mouth, and I wondered if he was secretly enjoying watching me stand up for myself. Ethan, furious and humiliated, started dating Luna more frequently. His social media posts became an endless stream of updates. It seemed like they were more interested in their relationship than their studies. Meanwhile, my grades kept rising, and I felt strangely calm. The best revenge wasn't to lash out or cry, but to rise above, to succeed while watching them drown in their own mistakes. One day, Leon casually blocked my view of my Chinese textbook and said, "Your cousin's account gained 500 more followers yesterday." I smiled, feeling a surge of excitement. "This is just the beginning," I said, knowing it was only a matter of time before everything fell into place. I looked at Leon and patted his shoulder. "You've worked hard. Your photos are amazing, and your editing skills are top-notch." He raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "So, how will you thank me?" I smirked. "What do you want?" "How about applying to the same university as me?" he suggested. I nodded without hesitation. "Sure." Leon reached out and patted my head, a glimmer in his eyes. For a moment, he looked like he was going to say something more, but instead, he just smiled and walked away. As the graduation exams approached, I knew things wouldn't be easy. Although I had cut ties with Ethan, I could still feel Luna's venomous glares from across the room. I hadn't listened to my mom, and I hadn't made time to tutor Luna. The tutor I hired couldn't handle her poor foundation and ended up raising their fees. My mom, frustrated, fired them. But that didn't matter to me anymore. Luna, desperate, found a way to crack my password and went to an internet cafe to tamper with my records. But she was too late. I had already hired someone to keep an eye on her, and her actions were recorded. When it was exposed, Luna was forced to kneel and beg my mom for forgiveness. "Auntie, I was just worried. You've raised Elena for 18 years, but she's planning to leave for college. If she goes to the capital, she might never come back to care for you." My mom frowned, her mind clearly conflicted. "Luna's right. Elena. There's no need for girls to study so far away." I knew she was scared of losing control over me. But this time, I wasn't backing down. I chuckled. "Want to see where your dear niece has applied to?" I paused for effect. "A mediocre school. Thousands of miles away." I continued, my tone turning more serious. "She manipulated my personal details illegally, essentially hacking into a computer system. If the authorities decided to take action, she could be looking at a prison sentence of over 5 years. Luna managed to escape any consequences, of course. Ethan, feeling the sting of my coldness, used his connections to get her out of trouble. But I wasn't concerned. The more power people wield, the greater the risks they take on. A gentleman takes his revenge in his own time. 10 years is a reasonable wait. Leon and I made our way to the capital to report to the university. My cousin rented a place close to the school, and the three of us often gathered for brainstorming sessions. I immersed myself in creating proposals late into the night. As time passed, my cousin became more comfortable in front of the camera, and his follower count exploded. We capitalized on the surge in popularity of short videos, expanding our team at the university, using our expertise to create top-tier accounts. With each passing day, my bank balance grew, and my cousin too grew excited about his newfound success. "Maybe it's time for a sports car?" he suggested, already ready to spend. I held up a hand. "No, you can't just spend it all now." He smiled knowingly. "You're always looking out for me. No wonder my mom always said you're the smart one." By our 3rd year of college, our company was thriving. Our accounts were going viral left and right, and the money was rolling in. That was also the year Dad, who had been working overseas, decided to come back and take some time off to recover his health. In my past life, he had suffered from late-stage stomach cancer and refused treatment, only to leave me everything in his will. This time, I took him to the best hospital for a full gastric exam, and we caught everything early, preventing the worst. Dad never told Mom that he had quit his job, and when 2 months went by without her salary, she was furious. She texted him, accusing him of planning to abandon her and my sister. Dad sighed. Aunt, seeing the toll years of work had taken on him, urged him to tell me the truth about what had happened years ago. Back then, Dad had been in love with another woman. But Mom had seen them together, gotten him drunk, and forced herself on him. Using my unborn self as leverage, she coerced him into marriage. Dad, unable to let me be aborted, reluctantly agreed. He was a kind man, always avoiding confrontation, so once they were married, Mom took control of everything. That's why Aunt had always despised her scheming sister-in-law. But Dad always said they needed to stay together for the sake of the child. Mom, however, always doubted Dad's love for her. She hated the idea that he might love anyone else, especially me. I once told Dad he should just divorce her. That night, Mom came storming over, pointing her finger at me. "You ungrateful child," she yelled. She continued, "I should have just thrown you away back then." I let her shout, waiting until she was finished before speaking calmly. "Did you listen to Aunt's advice? Did you drug Dad, wear clothes that looked like his first love, and force him into marriage?" Mom stood tall, defiant. "What do you know?" she snapped. "If it weren't for Aunt, you wouldn't even exist." I shot back. "Since I was just a tool for you to secure Dad's love, why do you favor Luna more than me?" She sneered. "If not for you, I wouldn't have nearly died from that premature birth. Your dad is cold-hearted. While he was at the hospital with you, I was stuck with a postpartum caregiver." She added bitterly, "If it weren't for me, jumping off a building with you in my arms, he wouldn't have given up his salary so easily." The jealousy and control in her words were chilling. It hit me hard. Love and hatred are never truly unconditional. Even between a mother and daughter, the bond can break due to selfishness. I refused to let Dad send any money to Mom. She became enraged and caused a scene at the company, accusing me of destroying their marriage. In an attempt to force me into submission, Mom called Aunt for support. She demanded I listen to her if I didn't want things to escalate. What I didn't anticipate was that Aunt, who had a dangerous mix of addictions, was now involved with a recently released drug lord. In my previous life, Aunt had met her end at his hands. So, I took precautionary measures. I hired bodyguards to keep a close watch. But these two, naive and reckless, decided to take their complaints to the media. On their way, they encountered the drugged gangster, who attacked them. Aunt didn't make it out alive. This time, Mom was dragged into the mess as well. When Luna arrived, she was pregnant. The child was Ethan's. Years ago, during the graduation exams, Ethan had ignored the exams and spent the day in a hotel with Luna just to provoke me. Both of them failed. At first, Ethan's mother disapproved of Luna. But Ethan, seeing potential in her, told his mother they could have a future together. As a result, the Ethan family sent them to a third-rate school. Their rebellion against studying was clear. They moved into an off-campus apartment and spent their days in a haze of alcohol. A few years later, Luna became pregnant with Ethan's child. When I saw the two bodies in the morgue, Luna broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Clutching her swollen belly, she screamed, "Elena, how could you be so cruel? You even killed your own mother." I resisted the urge to gag. "Don't you see?" I retorted. "The tragedy was caused by your own mother. You spent all these years learning tricks from Aunt on how to manipulate men, didn't you?" I warned her, feeding men those pills only harms the child. Luna's face turned white with rage. Ethan gripped my arm, his eyes wild with anger. "Elena, what are you saying? You don't know?" I shot back. "My aunt used drugs to control men, and you've enjoyed it too, haven't you?" I continued, "Those drugs were too strong, and now look at the consequences. No wonder it took years of this lifestyle before she finally got pregnant." Ethan's hands tightened around Luna's neck. "Now I understand," he said coldly. No wonder you kept pushing me to take your family's concoctions. With disgust, I turned and walked away, uninterested in watching them tear each other apart. When Ethan found me later, he was holding the hospital's medical report. I wasn't expecting this, Elena, Ethan admitted, his voice laced with frustration. I've always heard Luna say she loves me, but behind my back, she used me, planning to manipulate me through the child. He sighed heavily, shaking his head. This runs in the family. My aunt did the same to my mom. She used someone's love to get what she wanted. Elena looked at him, her expression unreadable. I never really loved Luna, Ethan confessed, his eyes distant. At first, I was just with her to make you jealous. But over time, it became harder and harder to break free from her. A bitter smile crossed his lips. But the moment you started to favor her over me, that's when I started resenting you. Love is supposed to be pure, Elena replied softly, her voice tinged with sadness. There's no space for anyone else in it. Ethan's eyes locked with hers, and for a moment, his resolve faltered. He reached out, grabbing her arm gently. If I make her abort the child, will you take me back? Elena stared at him, her voice dripping with disbelief. What a delusional idea. My career was taking off, she continued, her tone firm. While you couldn't even finish school. Suddenly, Luna appeared, her eyes bloodshot and full of anger. Ethan, I love you. You can't let her make me abort our child, she shouted. Ethan's gaze fell to her swollen belly, and a look of disgust crossed his face. If it weren't for my mother trying to use my unborn child to claim inheritance, I would never have let this happen, he spat. Elena couldn't bear the scene any longer. She grabbed the designer bag Leon had given her, turning to leave. Ethan didn't let go. He followed her desperately, but at the street corner, a car came speeding toward them. Elena's reflexes kicked in, honed through years of training, and she dodged the vehicle with ease. Ethan wasn't so lucky. The car struck him, running over his legs. It was the same as what had happened to her all those years ago. Luna was quickly arrested. The investigation revealed that her unstable mental state, caused by long-term drug use and the trauma of her mother's death, had led her down a dangerous path. Despite having hurt someone while pregnant, Luna couldn't be immediately sentenced. In a chaotic frenzy, Ethan's mother tried to take Luna to abort the child as an act of revenge. But before she could carry out her plans, a female officer intervened. As they descended the stairs, Luna shot Ethan's mother a mocking smile. For the things I can't have, I destroy them, she sneered. You always were like this, Elena muttered under her breath, remembering how Luna had once broken her crystal ball years ago out of jealousy. In a moment of rage, Ethan's mother pushed Luna down the stairs, filing charges against her for attempted murder. However, her actions backfired. She ended up losing her own grandson in the process. Ethan's grandfather immediately declared that the family would divide its assets. With Ethan's legs shattered and his health in decline, his inheritance rights were stripped away. His mother was incensed. Pushing Ethan in a wheelchair, she demanded that the family assets be redistributed. If not, she threatened to expose the family's darkest secrets. Seizing the moment, Elena used the knowledge of Ethan's family altering her college applications as leverage. She exposed a series of scandals that brought the family to its knees. As a result, Ethan and his mother, responsible for this entire mess, were expelled from the family. Ethan, utterly defeated, asked, "Why did you make it so final?" Elena let out a soft laugh. "In our past life, didn't you push me under the car to save Luna?" she reminded him. His face turned ashen. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Stop pretending," Elena shot back, her eyes cold. "You remembered everything after the car accident." Before the ambulance arrived, Ethan's voice rang out in panic. "How could this happen?" he screamed. "It was Elena who got hit by the car. She broke her legs." Realization dawned in Ethan's eyes. Slowly, he bowed his head. "Elena, I was wrong," he whispered, his voice strained. "I shouldn't have been so obsessed with her. Please forgive me." Elena paused for a moment, then turned away. "Why should I forgive you?" "In our past life, after I caused your accident, Luna taunted you. She seduced me before she stole everything from you." Elena's voice grew cold. "You deserve no forgiveness." "Don't touch me, dirty cucumber," she spat, walking away with purpose. The sound of her heels clicking on the pavement was music to her ears. Everything had a consequence. Perhaps this was Ethan's retribution. Not only was he now penniless and uneducated, but he would never stand again, ending up in misery. Later, Luna was jailed for intentional harm. Ethan's mother, filled with hatred for her son's downfall, hired people to break Luna's legs in prison. Luna turned the tables, accusing Ethan's mother of causing the death of her child and filing a lawsuit. Her actions eventually led to her own imprisonment. The family drama was nothing short of spectacular. Meanwhile, Elena's father and aunt were thriving in the capital. After decades of working hard, they were finally enjoying some well-deserved peace. As usual, Aunt enjoyed spoiling Elena. "I made some bird's nest soup for you," she said, handing Elena a bag. "Take it to your office." "Leon loves the pancakes I make," her father added with a smile. "Tell him to eat them while they're fresh." Elena's cousin puffed out his cheeks, clearly annoyed. "I'm a major influencer with millions of followers, and you're treating me like a delivery boy for dog food?" he complained. Aunt wasn't fazed. She knocked on his head gently. "Stop showing off. If it weren't for your sister and brother-in-law, you'd still be wandering around with nothing." Her cousin grumbled as he carried the food to Elena's company, and later came to complain to her and Leon. They exchanged a smile, both silently thankful for the kindness that had surrounded them in the darkest moments.